Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The screens around him showed numbers that made his stomach hurt. The vote was done. 847 alien races had voted against Earth. Only one vote stood with humanity. Earth's own vote. The big screen showed the final count. Resolution 847C had passed. This law would kick humans out of space forever. They could never leave their own solar system again. The aliens called it protection. They said humans were too violent, too dangerous, too different. Jake looked at his crew. They all knew what this meant. No more exploring new worlds. No more trade with other species. No more helping aliens solve their problems. The galaxy had spoken. Humans were not welcome. Send the message, Jake told his officer, Ryan Torres. Tell all human ships to come home. Tell all colonies to pack up. We are leaving. Ryan's hands moved over his controls. Soon every human ship in space would get the same order. Come home. Leave everything behind. The aliens had made their choice. In the Great Council chamber on Station Prime, Ambassador Lisa Hamilton sat very still. Around her, 800 alien delegates celebrated their victory. They had voted to throw humanity out of their club. They seemed very happy about it. The Zephyrian delegate named Kexithal walked over to Lisa. His blue skin was bright with excitement. His forearms moved as he talked. You are very calm, Ambassador, he said. We thought humans would fight this decision. We expected anger, violence even. Lisa stood up slowly. She put her papers in her bag. Her face showed nothing. Did you expect that? She asked. How interesting. She walked toward the door. Then, she stopped and turned back. My grandmother told me something once, Lisa said. She said when people show you who they really are, believe them right away. Today, 847 species showed me exactly who they are. Kexthal watched her leave. Something in her voice made him feel cold inside. Across the galaxy, human settlements got the same message. Pack light. Come home. Do not fight. Do not argue. Just leave. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Danny Carter watched his workers load their ships. They had spent 10 years here. 10 years digging rare metals from dangerous caves. The alien owners had begged for human help, said only humans were brave enough and smart enough to do this job. Now those same aliens wanted humans gone. We do not have to follow this new law, said Zixra, the alien administrator. Our contract is separate. You can stay. Danny shook his head. No. We cannot stay where we are not wanted. He did not tell Zixra the truth. The mining operation would fail without humans. The caves were too dangerous, the equipment too complex. But that was not his problem anymore. On Research Station Omega-7, Dr. Patricia Wells packed her life's work into small boxes. She had spent 15 years here. 15 years working on projects that could save lives across the galaxy. Her research on quantum medicine was almost complete. Dr. Wells, said her alien partner, Ventar, you cannot leave now. The breakthrough is so close. The medical treatment you discovered could help millions. Patricia sealed her last box. The research belongs to the station. You can finish it without me. She did not mention that the breakthrough came from mixing human ideas with alien knowledge. It had taken 5 years to make it work. Without humans, the project would die. But how? Ventar asked. How did you make these connections that we could not see? You never asked to learn, Patricia said. You only wanted the results. Captain Morrison received reports from all over the galaxy. Human doctors leaving alien hospitals, human engineers abandoning half-built projects, human teachers closing their schools, human traders canceling their contracts. None of them complained. None of them argued. They just packed up and left. Sir, Ryan said, reading from his screen, the Vorthan Consortium is offering triple pay for our navigation experts. The Draconis Republic wants our terraforming teams to stay. Even the Cronin Empire is asking for our tactical advisors. Too late, Jake said. They voted. They made their choice. On Station Prime, emergency meetings began as soon as the humans started leaving. Species after species discovered problems they had not expected. The Ethereal Collective found that their bioships were failing without human genetic experts. The Sil hegemony watched their mining platforms break down. The Vorthon shipping lanes became dangerous without human pilots. But the humans kept leaving. No anger, no threats, no dramatic speeches. They just gathered their things and went home. Ambassador Lisa Hamilton made one last appearance before the council. The great chamber was full but very quiet. 847 species waited to hear what she would say. "We are not angry," Lisa said. Her voice carried to every corner of the huge room. "Anger would mean we care what you think of us. We are just disappointed, and now we are leaving you to the galaxy you voted for." She walked out of the chamber. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. 3 days later, the last human ship left Station Prime. The docking bay that had been full of human vessels for 50 years was empty. The silence felt heavy, threatening. Kexthul stood at the viewing window, watching the final human transport disappear into space. Other delegates joined him. They all stared at the empty darkness where humanity used to be. "They are really gone," whispered Naltux from the Ethereal Collective. "Good," said War Chief Groktar of the Cronin Empire. But his voice did not sound sure. They had won. Humanity was gone. The galaxy was safe from human influence. So why did victory feel so much like loss? In 72 hours, 50,000 years of human presence in the galaxy had ended. Not with war, not with threats, just with the quiet dignity of a species that knew when it was not wanted. The silence they left behind felt bigger than any scream. Dr. Patricia Wells stood in her empty laboratory for the last time. 15 years of research was packed into 12 small boxes. The rest stayed behind. Equipment, files, computers full of data. All property of Research Station Omega-7. Her alien, colleague Ventar watched from the doorway. His gray skin had turned pale with worry. "This makes no sense," Ventar said. "The medical breakthrough you found last month could cure our genetic sickness. Our children are dying, Patricia. How can you leave now?" Patricia picked up her final box. Inside were photos of her family back on Earth. Nothing else mattered. "The cure will be finished by someone else," she said. Ventar followed her to the transport bay. "But how? The quantum equations make no sense to us. The way you connected biology with physics, it was like magic." "It was not magic," Patricia said. "It was just a different way of thinking." She did not tell him the truth. The breakthrough had taken 5 years because it needed both human intuition and Kilrathi logic working together. Humans saw patterns that aliens missed. Aliens understood details that humans overlooked. Together, they could solve impossible problems. Apart, those problems stayed impossible. The transport doors closed. Ventar pressed his face against the window, watching his best friend and partner disappear forever. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Foreman Danny Carter supervised the loading of the last extraction machines. The equipment was worth millions of credits. But it belonged to the Sil hegemony. The humans took only their personal things. Administrator Zixra ran between the human workers, trying to convince them to stay. "The new law does not apply to private contracts," she said. "We can make a separate deal, better pay, better housing, anything you want." Danny shook his head. "No deals, we are going home." "But the extraction sites will fail without you," Zixra said. "The gravitational fields are too dangerous. Your people are the only ones who can handle them." "Then you should have thought about that before you voted," Danny said. He climbed into the transport without looking back. Through the window he could see Zixra standing alone on the landing pad. Her forearms hung limp at her sides. Danny had spent 10 years teaching the Sil how to run the mining operation. They had learned to use the machines, they had learned to read the safety displays, but they had never learned to think like miners. They followed rules instead of instincts. They trusted computers instead of experience. That would not be enough. On the trade station of Hub 7, Captain Ben Parker closed the offices of Human Transport Services. His company had run cargo between 17 star systems for 23 years. Every alien government had used his ships. Human pilots could navigate routes that others called impossible. Captain Parker called Delegate Mordak of the Vorthan Consortium. "Wait, we must discuss this situation." Ben sealed the last crate of office equipment. "Nothing to discuss. We are closed." "The shipping contracts," Mordak said. "We have agreements worth billions of credits. The Andromedus Run, the spiral route, the Deep Void Passage, only your pilots can handle those routes." "Find new pilots," Ben said. "We tried. 3 Vorthan captains attempted the Andromedus Run last month. 2 ships were lost. The gravitational anomalies are too complex for our navigation systems." Ben picked up his crate. "Then maybe you should not have voted to get rid of us." Mordak watched the humans pack their shuttles. His species had built their entire economy around human navigation skills. Vorthan ships carried cargo across the galaxy because human pilots could find safe paths through dangerous space. Now those pilots were leaving, and the routes they had opened were closing forever. In the orbital city of New Geneva, teacher Carol White said goodbye to her students. For 8 years, she had taught alien children how to speak English, how to understand human culture, how to think creatively instead of just following rules. Her classroom was full of young aliens from dozens of species. Their parents had paid high fees for human education. They said human teachers could prepare their children for a galaxy where humans were partners and leaders. "Why are you leaving, Miss White?" asked Pixnil, a young Zephyrian. "Did we do something wrong?" Carol knelt down to look into the child's large blue eyes. "No, sweetie, you did nothing wrong. But the adults in charge have decided they do not want humans around anymore." "But who will teach us human math?" asked Krellick, a Cronin child. "My parents say human math is better than Cronin math." "Someone else will teach you," Carol said. But she knew that was not true. Human mathematics was not just numbers and formulas. It was a way of seeing problems, of finding solutions that others could not imagine. Without human teachers, these children would learn alien math, rigid, limited, safe. On Earth, news channels showed the Great Return. Thousands of human ships filled the sky around the home planet. Colonies that had been empty for decades suddenly came alive again. Space stations that had been shut down for years started working. President Helen Clark stood at her office window, watching the ships come home. Her assistant, Kevin Park, brought her reports from across the galaxy. "The Ethereal Collective is offering unlimited research budgets," Kevin said. "The Draconis Republic wants to hire our entire terraforming department. Even the Cronin Empire is asking for military advisors." "What do they not understand about No?" Helen asked. "They are panicking," Kevin said. "The Galactic Stock Exchange has crashed. 3 major shipping companies have gone bankrupt. The SIL mining operations are already showing system failures." Helen turned from the window. "They voted, Kevin. 847 species told us we were not welcome. We listened. But they did not know," Kevin said. "They did not understand how much they needed us." "Of course they knew," Helen said. "They just thought they could have our work without having us." In the depths of space, automated systems began failing across the galaxy. Traffic control networks that had been built with human software started making errors. Medical devices that used human-designed interfaces became too complex for alien doctors to operate. Planetary defense systems that had been upgraded with human tactical programs began showing critical malfunctions. The aliens had wanted human technology without human people. They had wanted human solutions without human problems. They had wanted human benefits without human presence. Now they were learning that those things could not be separated. On Station Prime, emergency meetings ran day and night. Species after species reported the same problems. Systems were failing. Projects were stopping. Trade routes were becoming too dangerous to travel. Kexthul stood before the emergency council session. His report was 300 pages long. All bad news. "The human exodus has created galaxy-wide instabilities," he said. "Our economic models show catastrophic damage across all sectors. Transportation, mining, research, education, medical services, manufacturing. Everything is affected. How bad? Asked War Chief Groktar. Conservative estimates suggest a 50-year setback in technological progress. Optimistic estimates suggest we might recover in 30 years. The council chamber was quiet. Too quiet. What, about the humans? Asked Delegate Naltux. Can we negotiate with them? Kexthul shook his head. They are not answering our calls. Earth has closed its borders. No ships in or out, no communications, no trade, complete isolation. They cannot do that, Groktar growled. We have rights. What rights? Kexthul asked. We voted them out of the galaxy. Now they have voted us out of their solar system. Outside the council chamber, the great viewing windows showed empty space where human ships used to dock. The silence felt heavier each day. 50,000 years of human-alien cooperation had ended in 72 hours. Not with war, not with threats, just with the quiet dignity of a species that had finally heard enough. And in that silence, the galaxy began to understand what it had lost. Economic analyst Chen Lu watched the numbers fall on her screen. The Galactic Stock Exchange was dying. Red numbers everywhere. Ships stranded in space. Colonies running out of supplies. Entire star systems going dark. It had been 6 hours since Earth officially closed all trade with the galaxy. 6 hours since humanity withdrew from every contract, every partnership, every agreement they had ever made. The Vorthon Consortium just lost 60% of their value, her assistant Kevin Park reported. Their shipping empire is collapsing. Chen nodded. She had expected this. The Vorthons had built everything around human navigation systems. Human pilots had been the only ones who could fly the dangerous trade routes. Without them, 60% of galactic commerce would simply stop. What about the Draconis Republic? Chen asked. Down 45% and falling. Their terraforming projects are shutting down one by one. Chen closed her final report. Earth's last day of galactic trade was ending. Tomorrow, humanity would be completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. She did not feel sad about it. She felt relieved. On the trading floor of the Central Galactic Exchange, panic spread like fire. Alien traders ran between terminals, trying to save investments that were already lost. Species that had voted to kick out humanity now begged for human expertise. The Ethereal Collective had built their entire biotechnology industry around human genetic algorithms. Their living ships were more than just vessels. They were partnerships between alien biology and human programming. Without human updates, the ships began to act strangely. Some refused to follow orders. Others tried to return to their birth planets. 3 had already died in space, leaving their crews stranded. Delegate Naltux received reports from across ethereal space. Every bioship was showing signs of system failure. The genetic code that humans had written was breaking down without constant maintenance. How long do we have? She asked her technical advisor. 6 months, came the answer. Maybe less. The bioships are trying to revert to their original programming, but that programming is 500 years old. It will not work with modern systems. Naltux closed her eyes. The Ethereal Collective had over 10,000 bioships. Each one carried hundreds of crew members. Without human support, they would all die. Can we fix them ourselves? She asked. We tried. The human code is too complex. It thinks in ways we cannot understand. It makes connections that seem impossible to us. The Cronan Empire faced different problems, but just as deadly. Their war, fleets had been upgraded with human tactical software. The programs helped Cronan commanders make better decisions in battle. They could analyze enemy movements and predict outcomes with incredible accuracy. Now those programs were failing. Without human updates, the tactical systems began making errors. Simple battles became confusing. Easy victories turned into defeats. War Chief Groktar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at tactical displays that made no sense. His fleet had just lost a training exercise against unmanned drones. Drones that should have been easy targets. What is wrong with our systems? He demanded. The human software is deteriorating, his advisor replied. It was designed to learn and adapt, but it needs human input to function properly. Without that input, it begins to forget what it has learned. Then we fight without it, Groktar said. Sir, our efficiency ratings have already dropped by 23%. In a real battle, that could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Groktar said nothing. The Cronan Empire ruled through military strength. If their fleets became weak, other species would challenge them. The empire that had voted to banish humanity might not survive without human help. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Administrator Zixra watched her third extraction platform explode. The massive structure collapsed into the gravity well it had been mining, taking 12 alien workers with it. What went wrong? She asked her chief engineer. The same thing that went wrong with Platform 5 and Platform 8, the engineer replied. Gravitational cascade failure. The safety systems could not handle the stress. But we followed all the procedures, Zixra said. We used the same equipment the humans used. We used the same machines, the engineer corrected, but we do not think the same way. The humans never followed our procedures. They watched the gravity fields and made decisions based on what they saw, not what the computers told them. Zixra looked at the wreckage floating in space. Can we learn to do that? Maybe. In 10 or 20 years. If we are very lucky and very smart. We do not have 20 years, Zixra said. The hegemony needs those rare metals now. 3 more. Platforms would fail in the next month. By then, the sill mining operation would be completely shut down. An industry that had employed millions would be gone. The Zephyrian colony of New Theta sent desperate messages to their home world. The atmospheric processors were failing. Without constant maintenance, the poisonous atmosphere would kill everyone on the planet within weeks. Colony Administrator Pexthul read the technical manuals over and over. The human-built processors were supposed to be simple to operate. But every time he tried to repair them, they broke down worse than before. The humans made this look easy, he told his engineering team. They worked on these machines for hours every day, but they never seemed worried. Maybe they hid the problems from us, suggested one engineer. No, Pexthul said. I watched them work. They understood these machines in ways we do not. They could hear when something was wrong. They could smell chemical imbalances. They could feel vibrations that our sensors could not detect. So we are going to die because we do not have human senses? The engineer asked. Pexthul looked out the window at the green sky that hid deadly gases. We are going to die because we chose to live without human friends. Ambassador Lisa Hamilton sat in her apartment on Earth, reading reports from across the galaxy. Economic collapse, system failures, colonies in danger, entire species facing extinction. Her communication system chimed constantly. Messages from alien governments begging for help, offering money, territory, anything humanity wanted. All refused without reply. Former Captain Jake Morrison visited her that evening. He brought coffee and news from the Solar Defense Force. 17. Alien ships tried to enter the system today, he reported. All turned away peacefully, no incidents. What kind of ships? Lisa asked. Medical vessels mostly, a few research ships. One was carrying Zephyrian children. They wanted to evacuate them before their colony's atmosphere fails. Lisa said nothing. She felt no joy in alien suffering, but she felt no obligation to end it either. The Galactic Council has called 12 emergency sessions this week, Jake continued. They keep passing resolutions asking us to come back. And we keep not answering. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Earth's sunset through the apartment windows. Below them, the city was full of returning humans. People who had spent decades in space were learning to live on a planet again. It was not easy, but it was better than being where they were not wanted. Do you think we will ever go back out there? Jake asked. Lisa smiled for the first time in months. Maybe. Someday. When we find people who want us as partners, not just as tools. And if the aliens change their minds? Then they can prove it, Lisa said. With actions, not words, they voted to get rid of us. That vote told us everything we needed to know about how they really felt. Far across the galaxy, automated systems continued to fail. Trade routes became impassable. Research projects stopped. Medical treatments became unavailable. Entire industries shut down. The aliens had wanted human benefits without human presence, human solutions without human problems, human work without human workers. Now they were learning that humanity could not be separated from human achievement. The people and their accomplishments were the same thing. 847 species had voted to exile humanity from the galaxy. Now they were discovering what a galaxy without humans actually looked like. And in the growing darkness, between the stars, they began to understand the true cost of their choice. 6 months had passed since humanity left the galaxy. The first colony died on a Tuesday. New Theta had been a shining example of Zephyrian expansion. 50,000 colonists living on a world that should have killed them in minutes. The atmosphere was pure poison, but human-built processors had made it breathable. Now those processors lay silent and broken. Administrator Pex Thule stood in the control room, staring at screens full of red warning lights. Outside, the colony's protective dome was turning yellow as toxic gases seeped through failing filters. "How long?" he asked his chief engineer. 6 hours, came the reply. "Maybe 8 if we shut down the outer sectors." Pex Thule closed his eyes. 50,000 people, his people, all dying because he had voted to kick humans out of the galaxy. "Sir," the engineer said quietly, "the evacuation ships are ready." Where will we go? This was our only colony world. Back to Zephyria Prime, back to the overcrowded cities, back to rationed air and water. Pex Thule had been born on New Theta. His children had played in parks under artificial skies. This world was their home. But homes built by human hands were falling apart without human maintenance. The evacuation began at dawn. Ships loaded with crying families lifted off from landing pads that humans had built. By sunset, New Theta was empty except for the ghosts of a future that would never come. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Administrator Zixra watched the 7th platform collapse into the gravity well. Another dozen workers lost. Another million credits worth of equipment destroyed. The SIL mining operation that had employed 300,000 aliens was down to a single working platform. The rest had failed in spectacular explosions of twisted metal and broken dreams. "We should shut down," her chief engineer advised, "before more people die." "We cannot shut down," Zixra replied. "The hegemony needs these rare metals. Our entire economy depends on this operation." "Then we need humans." Zixra turned away from the window. "Humans are gone. They are not coming back. Maybe they would help if we asked nicely." "We did ask. We offered them everything. They do not even answer our messages." The engineer looked at the wreckage floating in space. "Can you blame them?" Zixra could not answer that question. 6 months ago, she had celebrated when the Galactic Council voted to expel humanity. She had called them dangerous and unpredictable. Now she would have given anything to see a human face in her control room. The final platform failed 3 days later. The entire mining operation shut down permanently. 300,000 SIL workers lost their jobs. The hegemony's economy began to collapse as rare metal supplies ran out. Dr. Ventar sat alone in his laboratory on Research Station Omega-7. The medical breakthrough that could have saved his species was right there in front of him. All the equations were correct. All the data was perfect. But he could not make it work. The problem was not the science. The problem was the understanding. Patricia Wells had not just discovered a cure. She had discovered a new way of thinking about the connection between physics and biology. The quantum field interacts with cellular DNA in ways that create resonance patterns, he read from her notes. These patterns can be modified to repair genetic damage at the molecular level. The words made sense, but the meaning was lost. How did quantum fields interact with DNA? What were resonance patterns? How could they be modified? Patricia had tried to teach him. For 5 years, she had shown him her methods, but he had only learned to copy her results, not to understand her thinking. "Sir," his assistant said from the doorway, "the Council of Medicine is asking for a progress report. Tell them the project has been suspended indefinitely. But sir, the genetic plague is spreading. 7 more colonies have been infected. Thousands are dying." Ventar looked at the cure that could save them all. A cure that existed but might as well have been magic. "Then tell them to pray for a miracle," he said. "Because that is what we need now." The Vorthon Consortium lost another convoy that week. 12 ships attempting the Andromedas run. 3 made it through the gravitational anomalies. 9 were crushed by forces they could not predict or avoid. Captain Mordak studied the navigation charts in his office on Hub 7. The trade routes that connected the galaxy were becoming impassable. Only human pilots had been able to navigate the dangerous passages between star systems. "We could try hiring non-human pilots," his aide suggested. We tried. The Dracorians lost 4 ships on the spiral route. The Ethereals refused to risk their bioships. The Cronins cannot fit through the asteroid fields. What about automated ships? Computers cannot handle gravitational anomalies. They follow programmed routes, but space changes constantly. Gravity fields shift, asteroid positions change. Solar winds create new hazards every day. So what do? Mordak looked at the empty docking bays where human ships used to load cargo. "We find new routes, safer routes, even if they take 10 times longer. The consortium will go bankrupt. The consortium is already bankrupt. We just have not admitted it yet." The Cronin Empire faced its own crisis. Their great war fleets, once the terror of the galaxy, had become confused and ineffective without human tactical software. War Chief Groktar received reports from across Cronin space. Training exercises that ended in disaster. Simple missions that turned into deadly failures. Elite units that could not defeat basic opponents. "The tactical programs are deteriorating faster than expected," his military advisor reported. "The software was designed to learn from experience, but it needs human programmers to guide that learning. Without them, it begins making random connections." "Can we remove the human programs and use our original systems? We tried that on the 3rd Fleet. Their battle effectiveness dropped by 60%. They could barely function at all." Groktar slammed his fist on the table. "How did we become so dependent on human thinking?" "Because human thinking works," the advisor replied. "They see patterns we miss. They make connections we cannot. They find solutions we never consider. And now they are gone. And now we are alone." On the ethereal bioship Heart of Stars, Captain Velnara watched her vessel die slowly. The living walls that had pulsed with healthy green light were turning gray. The neural networks that connected every part of the ship were going silent one by one. "How long?" she asked her biotechnician. "Weeks, maybe days. The genetic programming is reverting to its original state. But that programming is 500 years old. It cannot support modern systems." "What about the human backup codes?" "They require human input to activate. The bioship recognizes human genetic markers and brain patterns. Without a human operator, the codes are useless." Velnara looked out at the stars through eyes that were growing dim. Her ship had been alive for 3 centuries. It had carried thousands of ethereals across the galaxy. Now it was dying because its human partners had left. Can we find humans willing to help? Earth has closed its borders. They do not answer any communications. Even emergency medical calls are ignored. Velnara touched the wall of her ship. The biomatter felt cold and lifeless under her fingers. "Then we abandon ship and hope someone finds us before the life support fails." Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on thousands of bioships. Living vessels that had thrived through human-alien cooperation were dying in the cold void. Between stars, on Station Prime, Delegate Kexthul faced the emergency council session. Representatives from 847 species filled the great chamber. All of them angry, all of them afraid. "The economic reports are in," Kexthul announced. "Galaxy-wide productivity has dropped by 43%. Trade, Volume is down 67%. Technological advancement has stopped completely in most sectors. What about the humans? Demanded War Chief Groktar. Have they responded to our offers? No response to any communication. Earth's solar system is completely closed. They have defensive satellites at the border, but no weapon signatures. The satellites just broadcast a simple message. This system is closed to galactic traffic. They cannot hide forever, said Administrator Zixra. Can they not? Kexthul asked. Earth is completely self-sufficient. They have everything they need. We, on the other hand, are falling apart without them. The chamber fell silent. For 6 months they had told themselves that humans would come back, that human pride would give way to human greed, that humanity needed the galaxy as much as the galaxy needed them. They were wrong. What do we do? Asked Delegate Nal Tux. Kexthul looked around the chamber at 847 species that had voted to exile humanity. We learn to live with our choice, and we pray that our children are smarter than we were. Outside the station, space was darker than it had ever been. Trade routes that had buzzed with activity for centuries were empty. Colonies were being abandoned. Entire star systems were going silent. The galaxy was learning what it meant to live without humanity, and the lesson was harder than anyone had imagined. 2 years had passed since the human exodus. The galaxy was a quieter place now, darker, smaller. Former Ambassador Lisa Hamilton sat on her porch in Montana, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. Her farm was small but peaceful. Corn and wheat grew in fields that had once been empty prairie. No alien oversight, no galactic regulations, just earth, water, and sunlight. Jake Morrison lived on the next farm over. He had traded his starship captain's uniform for work clothes and muddy boots. Sometimes in the evenings they would sit together and watch the stars appear in the darkening sky. Message came through today, Jake said, settling into the chair beside her. The council has called another emergency session. Which number is this? Lisa asked. 73. They have passed 46 resolutions asking us to return. Each one offers more than the last. Lisa sipped her coffee. What are they offering now? Full territorial rights, expanded representation, complete cultural autonomy, and every species that voted against us has to formally apologize. Sounds generous, very generous, too generous. They sat in comfortable silence as the first stars appeared overhead. Earth's sky was cleaner now. Without the industrial pollution from galactic trade, the air was crisp and clear. Any word from the colonies? Lisa asked. New Eden is thriving. The Australian system is fully terraformed. The farming worlds are producing surplus food. We are doing better than ever. Without them. Deep in space, Earth's automated probes continued their lonely journeys toward distant stars. They carried no weapons, no threats, no demands, just seeds, genetic samples, and digital libraries containing the sum of human knowledge. Somewhere out there, humanity was preparing for a future that did not include the old galaxy. New worlds waited to be discovered. New civilizations might be found among the stars. But this time, humans would be more careful about who they trusted. On the former Zephyrian colony of New Theta, only robots remained. Automated systems tried to maintain the empty buildings, but without human oversight, they were failing too. Vines grew through broken windows. Weather systems damaged by the atmospheric poisoning created acid rain that ate through metal and stone. The colony that had once been home to 50,000 people was becoming a monument to poor choices and lost opportunities. Administrator Pexthul, now living in a refugee camp on Zephyria Prime, sometimes watched videos from New Theta's better days. Children playing in parks, families walking through green gardens, scientists making discoveries that could have changed the galaxy. All gone because he had voted to get rid of the humans who made it possible. The Sil hegemony had collapsed completely. Without rare metals from Kepler Forum 42b, their technology fell apart. Without technology, their economy failed. Without an economy, their government crumbled. Former Administrator Zixra worked in a food kitchen now, serving meals to unemployed miners. 3 million SIL had lost their jobs when the mining operation shut down. The few platforms that still functioned were operated by skeleton crews who barely kept them running. "Do you think the humans will ever come back?" asked Cortel. A former mining engineer. Zixra ladled soup into his bowl. "Would you come back if you were them?" Cortel thought about it. "No, I would not." Then we have our answer. The Vorthan Consortium had been broken up and sold for parts. Their shipping empire, built around human navigation skills, could not survive without human pilots. The trade routes that had connected the galaxy for centuries became too dangerous to travel. Captain Mordak worked as a cargo handler now, loading supplies onto the few ships that still attempted short-range flights. The great star-spanning trade network had been replaced by tiny local operations that took months to move goods that humans had transported in days. "Shipping manifest from the Centauri system," his supervisor announced. "Expected arrival time, 14 months. 14 months for a journey that human pilots had completed in 6 days. The galaxy had become a very large place again. The ethereal collective had lost half their bioships. The living vessels, deprived of human genetic programming, had simply died in space. Millions of ethereals found themselves stranded on worlds they had never expected to call home. Delegate Nal Tux lived on a refugee station now, along with 30,000 other ethereals whose ships had died. The station was crowded and uncomfortable, but it was better than floating dead in space. "The bioship gardens are still trying to grow," reported her aide. "But without human genetic guidance, the plants are mutating. Some are becoming poisonous. Others are refusing to produce oxygen." "How long before the gardens fail completely?" 6 months, maybe less. Naltux looked out the porthole at the graveyard of dead bioships floating nearby. Each one had been a masterpiece of ethereal biotechnology enhanced by human genetic algorithms. Together they had created wonders. Apart, they had created death. The Cronin Empire still existed, but barely. Their great war fleets wandered space like lost children, unable to fight effectively without human tactical support. 3 smaller species had already rebelled against Cronin rule. More would follow. War Chief Groktar commanded from a ship that was more museum than warship. The bridge computers showed error messages in 17 different languages. Systems failed daily. Repairs took weeks instead of hours. "Sir," his aide reported, "the 7th Fleet has requested permission to return to port. Their tactical systems are completely offline." "Denied. We cannot show weakness." "Sir, they cannot fight in this condition. They can barely navigate." Groktar stared at the tactical display that showed nothing but static. "Then we do not fight. We survive." But survival was becoming harder every day. On Research Station Omega-7, Dr. Ventar sat alone in his empty laboratory. The genetic plague had spread to 43 colonies now. Millions were dying from a disease that could have been cured 2 years ago. The medical breakthrough was still there in his files. Perfect equations, correct data, complete understanding of the problem. But he could not make it work without the human insight that had made it possible. "Sir," his assistant said from the doorway, "the medical council is asking for your final report." "Tell them the truth," Ventar replied. "Tell them we had the cure in our hands and we threw it away because we were afraid of the people who gave it to us." "Sir, they will not understand." "They will understand eventually, when enough people die, when enough children are lost, when the cost of their choice becomes clear." His assistant left him alone with his failure. Outside the laboratory windows, space looked empty and dark. The busy traffic of ships and shuttles that had once filled the void was gone. The galaxy felt abandoned. On Station Prime, Delegate Kex Thule walked through corridors that had once been full of life. The great space station that had been the center of galactic civilization was dying slowly. Without human maintenance contracts, systems were failing throughout the massive structure. The council chamber where 847 species had voted to expel humanity was empty most days now. Emergency sessions were called less frequently. There was nothing left to discuss, no solutions to propose, no hope to maintain. The great viewing windows that had once looked out on a sky full of ships from every species in the galaxy now showed only darkness. A few alien vessels still moved between the stars, but they were like candles in a vast empty house. Delegate Kexthul, a voice called behind him. He turned to see Pixanil, the young Zephyrian who had once been in Carol White's human studies class. She was grown now, working as a junior analyst for the council. "I have been studying the old records," she said. "The vote, Resolution 847C. I wanted to understand what happened." "And what did you learn?" "That we were afraid. We saw how successful humans were, how quickly they spread, how much other species respected them. We thought they would replace us." Kexthul nodded. "Fear makes people do stupid things." Was there another way? Could we have shared the galaxy with them? We did share the galaxy with them. For 50,000 years, they never tried to rule us. They just wanted to explore and learn and help. Then why? Kexthul looked out at the empty space where humanity used to be. Because sharing requires trust, and trust requires courage. We had neither. Pixnil stood beside him at the window. "My teacher, Miss White, used to say that the universe is big enough for everyone, that there was room for all of us to grow and explore together. She was right. Will we ever see humans again?" Kexthul was quiet for a long time. In the distance, a lone automated probe moved silently between the stars, human-built, but programmed, to avoid all contact with alien ships. "Maybe," he said finally. "Someday, if we become the kind of people they would want to know." "What kind of people is that?" "Better people. Braver people. People who choose friendship over fear." They stood together in silence, two beings from different species, watching the empty sky and dreaming of second chances that might never come. Far away, on a small farm in Montana, Lisa Hamilton finished her coffee and went inside to read before bed. Tomorrow she would tend her crops and feed her animals and live a quiet life on the world where humanity began. The galaxy had made its choice. Humanity had accepted it with dignity. And in the vast silence between the stars, 847 species lived with the consequences of the day they chose fear over friendship. The future belonged to whoever was brave enough to build it. And in the darkness of space, human probes carried